Hi, this is Scott Garibay. Today we're going to be talking about Andrew Yang, his $1,000 a month for every living American adult, right? And what is going to be done with the surplus of that money, with the surplus money, right? Which will specifically come from people who don't need that $12,000, okay? All right, so let me define, I just want to kind of draw borders around this to begin with, right? So Andrew Yang's right. There's a lot of people who need this money to go to college. There's a lot of people that need this money to put better quality food in the refrigerator, right? Make sure that everybody in the family isn't scrimping, has decent clothes, and there's the people who need this money, right? There's going to be a lot of people, like maybe 50, 100 million people who need this money, right? That's going to be there without a doubt, right? I'm not talking about any of that in this video. That's already covered by Andrew Yang. What I'm talking about in this video is what about like 25 million to 75 million people in America that I think are just like me, right? Who are going to, we're going to get, $12,000 extra a year. Me and my wife, perfect example. We're going to get $12,000 extra a year each, right? We don't need a dime of that, right? We're already incredibly blessed. We're so fortunate. We kind of work as a team, and we got it on, we got it on rails. We're doing good, right? And so we don't need that extra 12 grand. And so when that 12 grand comes in, I'll tell you the first thing that's going to happen in the Garibay house is I'm going to tell Leanne, my wife, I'm going to say, oh, check it. I am becoming a sneakerhead, and I'm buying $12,000 worth of sneakers this year, right? I'm going to get Staple Pigeons. I'm going to get, all the Adidas I want. I will finally own, super dope sneakers, right? Everything in every shade I want in my colors, right? Which right now I would never spend $300, $600, $1,200 on a pair of sneakers because we have money, but not that kind of money, right? It's not fair for me to spend that when that's going to take so much from the rest of the family, right? Of what they want, not what they need, but just what they want, right? And my wife likes to have a little bit in the bank to, so you need to have all that there, right? So right now we don't have $1,200 sneaker money, right? But if we had 12 grand extra, now here's the thing. So I would say that, and it would be about a 30-second wait, and Leanne would say, no, right? So that would be squelched hard stop, right? So anything, and all the rest of the things I would want to spend it on, I would get, hardback tabletop role-playing games, and just ridiculous, silly stuff, right? And all that would just be squelched by my wife. And I'm not going to get any of that stuff, right? So, yeah, I mean, that would be the first thing that would happen in the Garibay household, right? But then the question would happen, what would all that surplus money be used for, right? So there's going to be I really believe there's going to be 25 to as many as 75 million Americans who they're going to have this 12 grand a year, and they're going to have to find uses for it, right? And so what I'm going to talk about right now is all the unusual things that I think that money will get used for, not the provision. There are going to be people who need this money for provision and education, right? I think there's going to be a ton of people who don't need this for provision or education, right? And so at that point, it goes into these other uses. So I want to talk about those now. All right, so what other uses would you have? Well, the first one would be projects, very unusual projects, right? So a perfect example is I know a guy in Lancaster, right? And he's got a ton of land, right? And he's a railroad head guy just like me, right? And we know, between us, we know 20, 40, 50 people. We could all say, hey, everybody put up 5 grand. We're going to build a tiny railroad on his land, right? Just like a super small quarter-mile track. We're going to put a locomotive on it in one car. Just weird, strange projects, right? So that's the first thing I think that's one of the first things it's going to be used for. Just really strange, unusual projects, okay? The second one is communities, right? So I'm also part of, like I said, I'm a huge tabletop role-playing game guy. Dungeons & Dragons, I consider myself a scholar of Dungeons & Dragons history. I own every single version of the game in hardback. And I will tell you right now, there is already people talking about Dungeons & Dragons communities, right? like people coming together in groups of 25, 50, 100 people and buying an entire house, right? And that house, you know, from, you know, if it has 10 different rooms, you could have, you could fill half those rooms with tabletop role-playing games. You get super dope $5,000, you know, gaming tables. You could just have a space for tabletop role-playing games. So, and that's just tabletop role-playing games, right? There are going to be all kinds of communities, right? Archery and soccer and, you know, just all kinds of really unusual communities who come together. Board game people, right? Who come together and build these, you know, and build communal structures, right? Where they come together for this one activity. And they could literally purchase edifices, right? Entire buildings, right? They could get, you know, different plots of area. Like, you know, if you're really into, what's that Frisbee game? Like Ultimate Frisbee, right? You might buy a field, right? And these kind of things. Right now, this seems crazy, right? Like, but when like literally millions of people have $12,000 a year they don't need, you could do some really unusual stuff, right? So communities will use this stuff, right? The next one would be innovative charities, right? So right now, I think we're already in America starting to reach a significant portion of overlap, right? In some of the cities I live near, like for instance, you know, there's a lot of charities there's multiple charities that are serving the same groups. A perfect example of this is veterans, right? Like in one of the cities I'm at, there's no less than like 50 different charities that serve veterans, right? And so, you know, right now we're reaching a point where there's so much wealth in the nation that it seems like charities are kind of seeking out people to help, right? And once we have this, you know, this Andrew Yang money, it can really get unusual. Like very, very innovative charities. Like really unusual things like pet weddings. Perfect example, right? Let's say people who don't have a lot of resources have pets and they want those pets to be married and have weddings, right? Perfect example of a really unusual, innovative charity, which right now today, you're not going to have a pet wedding charity, right? It doesn't make any sense. But when you have literally just millions of people with $12,000 extra a year, where's that money going to go, right? And so I think it, you know, now yeah, I'll give you another one. Okay, there's also going to be Ubi Angels, Ubi Angels. I'm coining this term now. I predict there's going to be significant number of Ubi Angels, right? And Ubi Angels are people who are like, I don't need this money, I'm signing it over to you, boop. And all the smartest charities are going to be like, hey, we'll take all of your UBI, right? And I think there'll be people who are like, just shine, like, I belong to a church. I guarantee within that church there'll be people who are just like right in, you know, they'll be like, I don't know if my church will do it, but some church will be smart enough to have a program to say, you know, just, you know, do an automatic transfer. All your UBI just goes right to us, right? That would be huge. Like that could be huge. And there's tons of different, so Ubi Angels would be people who are like, I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to spend this on sneakers. I want to give this to, you know, to XYZ charity that I really care a lot about, right? So charities could just get flush with cash from this UBI money, right? So you have the idea, this concept of Ubi Angels. Another one is, I predict, okay, so one, I have a huge amount of sympathy for Andrew Yang. Man, my respect for him and my excitement for his presidency grows every single day. And one of the things I think is, you know, right now, we're barely seeing any real significant, we're barely seeing all of Andrew Yang's ideas and what he has planned, right? And the reason why is he's in win mode, right? And he has to be in win mode. He has to be in win mode. It's really important that he remain in win mode. Keep it simple. Repeat the same stuff to audience after audience after audience. Get the message out. Hammer this thing like a Tolkien dwarf at a magical forge, man. Just keep hammering away, right? You know, you want to forge that win, right? And so I think he's really hustling, but there's a lot of stuff. And so one of the things I think there's going to be some things that surprise him about UBI. like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of people who don't need it. And then there's going to be a question mark of, like, what do I do with it, right? Well, I could see the government giving a program to get that money back, get that money back into the U.S.'s coffers, right? And so what could you do to get that money back, right? And this would be Title Americans, right? So I think what you could do is you could set up a program of Title Americans. So people are saying, hey, I don't really need this money. You can keep my UBI, and I want a title, right? Like American Knight, right? I pay 12 grand a year for that title. That'd be awesome. Like, why should British people be the only people that have knights, right? I would definitely, that'd be super dope if there were like American Knights, right? So you can give titles, right? You could give titles, and that costs the nation absolutely nothing, right? Like titles are, I think titles are one of the most underused things in the world, right? People act like titles don't matter. They do. Titles matter, right? And in my opinion, you could really make a ton of money. You could really make a lot of progress with this thing with using titles. I think it could really, really be huge. So you could have Title Americans, Americans who are signing back their UBI and then getting, signing back their UBI and getting a title, right? All right, now we've talked about a lot of cool areas where the money could go. Unfortunately, there's two areas where I think it could be a serious problem. And it's not, these problems with UBI are minor absolutely minor in comparison to the benefits that UBI will give, right? But they are significant problems, and they need to be watched and carefully watched. The first one is art, right? Now people are going to use, and I've already started hearing people talking about this, using UBI to create art, to become musicians, to become painters, to become sculptors, right? Now, here's the issue, right? I know some artists, right? And it is incredibly difficult to sell any type of art. It is, you know, whether it be music, whether it be visual arts of any kind, it's already incredibly difficult. And the reason why is art is literally a rock star job. Everybody wants to be a paid artist, right? And so when the supply of people who are skilled artists outweighs the demand, and that is already the case, you don't get any money for it because there's, you know, oh, I need a sketch of myself. Well, if you don't want to do it, there's 1,000 people I know who can do it, right? So I think, you know, artistry could be a serious problem in that everybody wants to be an artist of either a musical artist, a visual artist, a writing, you know, a novel writer, those kind of things. And like a perfect example, fiction novels. There's already a massive surplus, right? Well, when you have people who are using that 12 grand to write the American novel, you're going to have a lot more American novels. You're going to have a lot more bands. You're going to have a lot more painters. You're going to have a lot more sculptors, right? And we're already at a point where all that material is massively devalued, right? There's a few exceptions, but generally, you know, most people really can't, you know, I just read on Twitter today, there's a tabletop role-playing game freelancer has worked all year and made $60 cash in what they did. Like, artist is such a rock star job. Everybody wants to do it. Supply is really high. Demand is really low, right, comparatively, right? So I think art could be a problem because I think there's just going to be millions of people who decide, I'm going to start my rock band now, right? We already have too many rock bands now, right? There's not even enough time to listen to them all, right? So that could be an issue. It's a minor problem. It can easily be managed, but I don't think Andrew Yang's cabinet, when he's president, should be surprised when that becomes a problem, right? This next one is a real problem, right? I think the numbers on this are going to be very low. I don't think this is going to happen a ton, but it is going to happen a lot more than it's happening right now, right? So we talked about communities, and communities are great. Like if, you know, if a bunch of people come together to put together a tabletop role-playing game house, which is filled with awesome tabletop role-playing games and awesome, you know, $5,000 gaming tables and board games and all that kind of stuff. Great, that's awesome, right? They come together, they do their thing, and then they go to their homes, right? Well, here's the problem, right? Yep, check it. Communes. People who come together and live in communes. This is going to go through the roof. I think there's going to be a lot of them. I think there may be, you know, there's probably less than 100 communes in America right now of significance. And I think, you know, that number could double, triple, quadruple easily with UBI, because there's going to be charismatic leaders who are like, yeah, let's take all that 12 grand, let's pull it together and, you know, use it together. It'll be, you know, it'll work out fine. And here's my issue. Communes always end the same way, in this order: tears and fire. Like, and it never ever changes. Communes don't work. Communes don't work, right? And so I think there's going to be a rise in communes, and communes, people are broken, and communes always end in tears and fire. Now, if you have some commune that's been around you for 50 or 100 years and has lasted for a while, and you can tell me, oh, you're wrong, Scott, here's this commune, point me to it, I'd love to hear about it. But for every one you send me, I'll bet you I can tell you like 10 others that did not end well, right? Communes are generally just not a good thing. So communes have to be very, very carefully watched, and the rise of communes, and we have to have plans to deal with communes. So those are all the unusual, those are all the uses for the UBI money that isn't actually needed, right? And so shed a crocodile tear for Scott Garibay not getting his $1,200 sneakers and not being able to spend $12,000 a year on sneakers. But I'll live. I'd love to know, is there any that I missed? Are there any uses that you think people will, is there any uses for that money, that surplus money, that you thought I missed? Please let me know in the ones below if you think I'm wrong about any of those. Like, oh, it's going to work out great for art, right? It's going to make art better. I doubt it, but let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.